Hello everyone, so today we are going to talk about the heart and the different sections and parts of the heart, specifically in the context of how blood flows through the heart, and just as kind of a recap of something that we've already done. If we think about the heart is at the center of the circulatory system, or the cardiovascular system. So we have the heart in the center, and I like to think of circulation as kind of a figure eight, where we have the heart, it pumps, and initially the heart pumps blood to the lungs. Now, if it's going to the lungs, the blood that's heading there is deoxygenated, so that means it is lacking oxygen. So it's going to the lungs to pick up oxygen and drop off carbon dioxide. So it picks up oxygen at the lungs. It comes back to the heart, and there it now is at a different part of the heart. So the heart pumps, the blood then goes to the body, so the different cells, the different tissues. It drops off that oxygen, picks up carbon dioxide, and comes back as deoxygenated blood, and the cycle begins again. So lacks oxygen, picks up oxygen, comes back, gets pumped again, goes to the body, drops off oxygen, comes back without oxygen, and then the cycle continues. So today I kind of wanted to talk about the flow of blood through the different parts of the heart. And by doing so, we'll also learn the different parts of the heart in the process. So, for starters, I wanted to start up at the right atrium. So here we have the right atrium. We have 4 chambers in our heart. So we have 2 atria, the right atrium and the left atrium, and that's based on the person whose heart it is. So if this is my right side, and this is the front of my heart, this is my right atrium. So we have the right atrium. From there, notice how I have blue lines, and some of these vessels are labeled in blue, or kind of colored in blue. If it's blue, it's deoxygenated blood that's passing through there. If it's red, it's oxygenated blood that's passing through there. So it has oxygen if it's oxygenated again. Also, one thing that's important to note, a lot of people think that their deoxygenated blood is just naturally blue, like if it doesn't have oxygen, if it's not exposed to oxygen, it's blue. That's not necessarily true. Your blood does become a more vibrant, bright red when it has oxygen, but it's still red, it's just a darker red when it drops off its oxygen. So, we have the right atrium, which is in the upper right-hand side, according to the person. The blood will pass down into the right ventricle. Ventricle. So again, we have 4 chambers, 2 atria, and 2 ventricles. Right in between those two, we have a valve. This is called the Tricuspid Valve. So Tricuspid Valve is the valve in between the right atrium and the right ventricle. And what these valves do, we're going to notice, or we're going to talk about 4 different valves in the heart. These valves prevent backflow. So when blood comes in, the heart is relaxed. Blood naturally flows through the atrium, the right atrium, and then naturally flows into the right ventricle. And what happens is the right ventricle is going to contract. So this valve, based on the force of that contraction, is going to close shut. So that valve is going to close, preventing blood from flowing back from whence it came. So we don't want that. We want the blood to flow in a different direction, this way. So the tricuspid valve closes, and then this valve over here, I'm trying to think of the best way to label this, maybe like that. This valve right here is the pulmonary valve. Pulmonary valve. And that also prevents backflow of blood, but when the heart contracts, it pushes the blood through the pulmonary valve into this vessel, which we'll talk about in a second. but as soon as the blood is through there, it snaps shut, preventing any backflow of blood. So valves in general prevent blood from flowing backwards. Then we have this structure colored in blue, and again, blue is deoxygenated. That means deoxygenated blood passes through there. So we have the pulmonary trunk, pulmonary trunk. So we have the pulmonary trunk, which splits across into two, one going this way and one going this way. It splits into the pulmonary arteries. We're going to talk about arteries versus veins later on, but arteries, just kind of to give an introduction to arteries, arteries go or move blood away from the heart. They tend to be thicker because they're handling a lot of pressure, but arteries go away from the heart. So in this case, deoxygenated blood, blood that does not have oxygen, is being pumped away from the heart. Also, what I want you guys to know is that pulmonary, if you hear the word pulmonary, think lungs. So pulmonary equals lungs. So if you see that we have the pulmonary trunk here, pulmonary valve, pulmonary arteries, that blood is heading to the lungs. So if you notice, we have two pulmonary arteries going in either direction. This one going in this direction is going to be heading towards the left lung, and then this one over here is going towards the right lung. So I'll stop that video here, just because I don't want our labeling to get too crazy, but just as kind of a recap, we have deoxygenated blood coming from the body in the right atrium. It then passes into the right ventricle. The ventricles contract, so the heart beats. It pushes blood towards the pulmonary trunk. So the valve, the tricuspid valve, closes, the pulmonary valve opens, and the blood is pumped into the pulmonary trunk, and then it goes or diverges through the pulmonary arteries towards the lungs. So there it's going to pick up oxygen, and then in the next video I'll talk about how that blood coming back from the lungs is going to move through the heart.